Nicole and I have really found that differentiating ourselves over the years has kind of been a good thing. And you heard our story kind of on the main stage today. We want to kind of really condense that down and get into sort of the weeds, if you will, of how we kind of got to that point. So in terms of, I've already been introduced. I don't think there's anything further. I've been blessed to be on Alliance Speakers Bureau for 18 years. I'm nearing the 4,000 cases hallmark. You heard this morning, 95% Invisalign at this point. And so I've been, excited to sort of tell our story, certainly in the last couple of years with kind of how we got to that point. Let me introduce Nicole real quickly. Nicole, as you remember this morning, ADP, I poached her from ADP. If you ever want a phenomenal director of operations, poach from ADP. Corporate trained, understands sales, marketing. They do a phenomenal job of training them. So now Nicole is actually training me, which is kind of nice. I think that the first thing I wanted to go through is you kind of heard my story or my version of, and maybe I got a little emotional this morning when I was talking about that fateful Friday where I kind of broke down. I just didn't really feel, the excitement in my what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. I was sort of had lost my why. But Nicole was there to kind of really help us guide us back into that driving mode, differentiate us, in a way that I thought we were differentiated, but really to the next level. So I'll have Nicole kind of maybe walk into that a little bit, and then she's going to start the process here.
Perfect, thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you everyone for coming. Hopefully you'll get some pearls out of what our kind of consultation looks like and the things that we've implemented over the last couple of years. So Dr. Bashkin told his story in terms of what that looked like on that fateful Friday. But to back up, when I first started with Dr. Bashkin, I walked in, no dental experience, okay? I walked in from the sales, the customer service side, and when I walked in, I was looking at it from the customer perspective, right? So I was looking at, what do you feel like as a patient? Do you want brackets? Do you want poking wires? Do you want to have food restrictions? Do you want to smile with metal on your mouth? All of those things that I'm thinking about. But he thought he had it going on, right? He was Mr. 40%. I have all these processes and procedures in place, and I'm good. And did you know that I've been speaking for Invisalign for 20 years? I mean, he was very confident in his abilities, and I respect that, obviously, which is why I took the job.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. But what my whole point is like, how can we make it better? Why are you still at 40%? Why are you still offering just 40% Invisalign? There's people coming in here asking for Invisalign, and you're saying it doesn't work, but you're preaching something different. So I challenged him on it from a whole different perspective, and that's kind of how we got to today. And I say that story for those of you out there that work closely with your doctor, or for those of you doctors that actually might have that perspective right now. There might be something that needs to push you to the other end to kind of understand where that, customer is coming from. Who is that in your life that kind of pushes you a little bit?
So there's two things that we want you to get out of today with respect to what we're presenting. The first is this 35-minute consultation that we're advocating. We're going to kind of walk you through how we're able to achieve that. We also want you to understand the importance of the simulation. And we weren't always on board with the simulating and scanning everybody in the consultation setting, but certainly we're there now. And we'll kind of go through that evolution as well.
Perfect. So how do we get here? I'm going to come down to you guys. I feel like I want to be here. Who is this consumer? We've talked about why a consumer is important. Who is this consumer, and why do you need to change what you're doing today, okay? So let's start with this whole consumer buying cycle. All of you in this room are consumers, okay? So your buying cycle that you have today is very similar to your patients coming in that want orthodontics, okay? So recently I had to get a new phone. There's a problem that I had to recognize. I dropped it in water, no judging please. I did not put it in rice quick enough, and I needed a new phone, okay? So then I had to decide, did I want to get an Apple or did I want to get a Samsung? I'm an Apple girl, okay? So then I want to go experience it. So where do I go? The Apple Store, right? Love the experience. They give me options. What phone I want to buy and how do I want to pay for it? Do I want to pay it all up front? Do I want to pay $1,200 or do I want to make monthly installments? Okay, keep this all in mind because it's all going to come together. And then we purchase it. So, this is what you're all used to. This is that traditional buying behavior. This is your typical 60-minute exam where they've been referred to you by their general dentist, or they have crowding and they're coming to you because they want to get it fixed and they want the doctor to direct the plan. It's a key differentiator between our typical exam and what it's changed to, because the consumer is now driving what they want instead of what you as the doctor wants. So there's a big difference in terms of understanding. So you're all used to this, okay? But I'm going to change it. Here's your orthodontic consumer today. I like to put it into 3 different categories. Number 1, adults looking for Invisalign treatment. So it doesn't have to be a millennial, okay? They can be 40, they can be 70. They can still want treatment. So the difference with the consumer is that they've actively done research ahead of time, okay? So they've gone on the Invisalign website, they've gone on blogs, they've done their research, and they know before they come to your office that they want Invisalign. They want it, and they're gonna also tell you what teeth they want fixed, even though there might be a whole slew of other things, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 are millennials, okay? We know these millennials, they're 20 and 30-year-olds. There's probably millennials in this room. I wish I could still call myself a millennial, but I'm not. So they grew up on social media. They're used to having things right away, okay? They don't know what life looked like without an iPad, and they want a quick consult, just like Dr. Boschkin talked about this morning. They already want that. And then finally, there's this new generation, 18 and under, that are coming into your office, teenagers, that are actually directing treatment. They're saying to mom and dad, I want Invisalign, and here's the doctor I want to go to.
This is a trippy group.
It is.
We've had I don't know if you've had this yet, but we've had in the last couple months, 16-year-olds that have come into our office that basically are interviewing us to start treatment. It's really trippy because when you're in a consultation, you're directing most of your eye contact towards mom or dad when it's like a teenager, not as much towards the teenager. And yet, what we were in the one recently where the mom finally said to us, it's up to my daughter. She did all the research. She found you. And essentially, she'll decide whether or not we actually treat her. And it sort of tripped me out though, because it was like, and then this 16-year-old pulls out her phone and pays with Venmo. And I'm like, okay, so where's the money coming that goes into Venmo? It was sort of a trippy situation where I was like, whoa, this is a whole new generation coming in. Educated 16-year-olds who know what they want.
Right. How many of you have had those in your office? Yep, it's a new thing, right? You really have to make sure you're making eye contact with them just as much as you are with the parents, right? Okay, so we've got current consumer behavior. What are their primary drivers, right? They want things now. I'll give you an example for myself. I work full-time, I have a husband, I have 2 kids, I have a work husband, I have a lot of people at me, right? I have to manage my time. So what do I do for grocery shopping? I use Instacart. I don't go to the grocery store anymore because I figured I might as well outsource it. I love that experience. I can have Safeway at my door in 2 hours with all the groceries that I've already figured out. And if they, need a replacement, they'll be able to do that for me and communicate via text. So that's one experience that I use, but we're in a new society now, right? We're busier than ever. We're checking our phone all the time, right? What if we lost our phone? How anxious would we become? We're used to that. That's where we're at today. They're coming in informed, educated. They want to make sure they can get to your website quickly, and if they can't load your web page quickly, they will move on, right? 75% will move on if they can't do it within the first, minute. You know how anxious we are. We can't get to that website. We can't get logged on. We might as well just go to someone else. Dr. Boschman, why don't you talk about this ideal bite?
It's that ideal bite, that good, better, or best concept that people have been talking about recently. We got to wrap our minds around that. Not everybody coming in wants, that perfect ABO, 6 keys of occlusion perfection that we all been trained. We're all neurotic type A's and individuals in here. We all want perfection. And yet the consumer coming in these days, they're gonna pick a product based on their lifestyle. They're gonna want something that doesn't involve treatment for 2 years, let alone a year. So we have to be open to that, even though it may compromise some aspect of their final occlusion or a couple teeth here and there. I think we kind of need to be open to that. I don't know what that talk track looks like for you in your office and whether or not you're open to that. But just be aware, because this group is coming in droves, wanting that experience like we talked about this morning, but also might have some different ideas about their care.
Right. Okay, so why listen to us? Why are these consults working for us, and what can you take away from them? So the first thing that we know is that they're asking for it. Okay, you've seen the data. They're asking for it. They're asking for a short consult. That's what they've told us when they've given Invisalign the feedback, right, through the concierge in the store. They want them. And quite frankly, when they come into our office, they're telling us they want them. So we're getting that firsthand, okay?
And this is how we get to that 35-minute consultation. They come in, like I discussed this morning, they just have 3 questions. Will it work? How long and how much? And that doesn't take an hour-long consultation. That idea of having hour-long consultations is quickly fading. We have to find a way to shorten that buying cycle, if you will, and shorten that consultation conversation that we are also adjusted and used to, pulling it out to an hour, if not longer. Not what the consumer wants.
Yeah. In addition, we're going to talk a lot about the simulation and how we've used the scans in our consultations. And by using that simulation, we've increased our same-day starts by another 15%. So we've seen the data that this works, and we'll show you how we do it and why we feel like it's important to implement that in your office probably Monday.
Well, and then decreasing these number of appointments, keep in mind what we're advocating and what we've done for the last couple of years, that as every new exam that comes in gets obviously x-rays and photos, but also a scan, they get the outcome simulation, they get that rough draft. Now, while we want everybody to start same day, that's not realistic. We have people that need to check FSA, talk to their spouse, process, maybe do more research potentially. But the bottom line is, when they leave our office that day, we have all the material to be able to submit it to Invisalign. And so it's not unusual for them to call us 3 hours later and say, you know what, I'm ready. Mm-hmm. I consider that same day. And so what we do is we DocuSign everything. We send the documents off to them, they sign everything virtually, and then we're ready to rock and roll that day to process the case with Invisalign. Simple, to the point, but really streamlined. No sense in bringing these people back for yet a scan. That's not efficient. Think about your own lives and how you would be probably slightly annoyed to have to go back in for a scan. These are the records that you really want to get on every single consumer.
Right. I would say that DocuSign has really changed us. It's been a game changer, and our patients love it. I mean, I would love it too. It's easy and quick to do. You get back the document. There's an opportunity to put credit card information in there that's all secure. So it's been a game changer, so they don't have to come back, okay? It's also, this 35-minute exam has helped us increase the amount of exams that we can fit in our day. So remember how we talked about getting them in 72 hours is really important, this new patient, because they want it now, right? They order a pair of shoes on Zappos and they get it tomorrow. They call for a consultation, they don't want to wait 3 weeks. So we've been able to double. So if you normally have 5 exams, maybe now we can have 8 to 10, because we still have some 60-minute exams, but mostly we're moving them to those 35-minute, right? So you get more time in your day. And finally, this whole visualization. It's so key. And when I talk about visualization, I'm talking about how you can visualize your smile before and after, and we're going to show that to you today. You can see what it's going to look like. And once the patient sees that, they get this aha moment. Oh, this is what I'm going to look like. Yeah, I think I do want to do this today. I don't really need to think about it because this doctor and their team are showing me what my smile is going to look like. This is how I think about it. And ladies, you're probably going to relate to this a little bit more. Okay? You go to your hairstylist, you say, hey, I'm thinking about going red, but I'm not exactly sure what that's gonna look like, right? You're kind of on the fence. You ask your hairstylist, what do you think, right? They're like, oh, I think it would look good. But what if you actually had a picture of what that would look like on you, right? If I knew red was gonna look awesome, I would go with it right away. It's very similar in this other visualization. Sorry, men. I don't know, can you relate, Dr. Boschkin?
If they could add a little bit more hair right here.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but.
Yeah.
So anyway, just to kind of give you that again, comparison, if you can put it into different contexts, sometimes that helps. Okay, so here's our digital consult. Here's why we think it's important. I wanted to share one quick thing that I think might be helpful, I'm hoping, that will help why we moved to scanning every single patient and doing a simulation on every single patient. Not necessarily phase 1, but teenager up, why we do it. I pushed back on it initially because what was happening is that we would scan the patient and then Dr. Boschkin would spend a little bit of time making it perfect. He'd go in, he'd do the 3D controls, and he'd want to make it perfect, and I get that, but that added time. So we're up another 5, 10 minutes, and I'm going in and I'm like, are you done? Because we don't want this new consult to be waiting over here, right? So I said, nope, this is a waste of my time, this isn't working, we're not going to do this. And then I figured out that if we present it as a rough draft, and sometimes we go in and modify it with 3D controls, but if we present it as a rough draft, it's just as effective, and then we can still shorten that. So I wasn't always a believer, but I became one. So today we're going to walk you through step by step. This is a hands-on. How do we get to that 35 minutes? What does it look like? Okay, so by the end of today, you'll be able to see the tangible. How does this work? How can I implement this on Monday? So we start out with the check-in. Dr. Boschkin, tell us about that.
Well, as a backstory to that, it really does begin with that initial phone call. You want that front office person to have energy, use the name on a regular basis, ask it, answer any questions, position your office against other offices, not by name or anything, but to say, hey, our doctor uses the latest technology, we're a digital office, we have scanners, we use Invisalign, really pump them up, get them excited, and try to use that phrase, well, we're gonna be excited for you to come in to see if you qualify for Invisalign. We use that qualify all the time. By the time that I tell them in the consultation that they qualify, a lot of people are just handing me their wallet going, yes, we all want to qualify for something, right? And it's that moment of truth right there where they find out they've been qualified, because there's a lot of people that come in, and you've heard this, and we won't mention what the group is, but it's basically they're like, well, I was told I don't qualify for Invisalign. I love it when people say that. I've loved it that you've all said that for 18 years. You've helped me out tremendously. But stop saying it now, especially this group in this room. So when they check in, I think we have a similar approach. We have that sort of concierge approach, that Ritz-Carlton, Nordstrom, the meet and greet, the excitement, everybody's like really right there, meeting, greeting. We immediately bring them into our consult rooms. The offices have private consult rooms where then they're offered, water and coffee and tea, and then they're able to fill out the health history online if they haven't done it already. And it's in a quiet environment. You don't really want that new consumer waiting out there in the reception room or the waiting room as it's called, because that's their first snapshot of your business. That's the first snapshot of, romper room and the room is completely full. That's their assessment of like, oh, so that's how this is gonna be every time I come in. It's gonna be this madhouse. Get your new consumers out of that environment. Immediately bring them to a quiet consultation room. Hopefully you have Sonos, different quiet, music in those rooms, and calm them down. It's about building that experience, and that's what Nicole is all about, is building that rapport instantly. Because again, we might only have 35 minutes for them to make an economic decision that might cost them $5,000, $6,000, $7,000.
Right. So I think what I really want, and I know all of you do a great job at this, but it's about making them feel welcome. Like you want them to be a part of your family. Like you're welcoming them into your home for a party, right? You want to genuinely connect with them and make them feel comfortable. When they're comfortable, they trust you. And when they trust you, they want to start orthodontics with you. But they have to feel that connection, and it's got to be genuine. Like it has to be authentic. You got to be authentic to you. So take what we're saying today and put your authentic part on it, because that's an important part of it as well. So they've done the check-in. They've finished their health history. I go into the consultation. I introduce myself. I talk about what my role is and that Dr. Boschkin and I are going to do the consultation together. The reason I talk about my role is, to be honest, sometimes I walk in and they're looking at me like, are you the doctor? You're not the doctor. Why are you here? Sometimes I get a little bit of that. So I want to just come out front with it. Hey, my name's Nicole. I'm going to, or whoever the TC is. But if I'm the TC, I'll introduce myself, explain my role, and that we're going to do this consultation together. And I walk them through what it's going to look like. So I set this agenda so that, again, I'm in control. They're not asking about the finances right up front, because they know that we're not going to actually present those until the end. So the other thing I do is that I review with them, why are they here? So I see on your intake form, you said that you were concerned about some crowding. You've had prior orthodontics. You didn't wear your retainer, and now you have crowding and want to get it fixed. And then I ask them, I take it a step further, and I say, we're so glad you're here. I want to understand from you what's important to you when you're evaluating your orthodontist. Is it location? Is it pricing? Is it outcome? What's important to you? And I'm asking that up front because I want to make sure we address that, but I'm also asking because I want to tailor it to them. I want to make sure that when Dr. Boschkin comes in, that he knows that crowding's important, and that timing is also the other most important thing. We have to get this done in 6 months, or she's on to the next orthodontist.
So in the interest of time, we have two people right here, Shannon and Jamie. One's a patient, one's an expert scanner. Which one's the scanner? Jamie. Okay, so why don't you two come up.
Let's give them a warm welcome. Thanks, guys.
Yes, warm welcome here. Thank you. Now, no pressure. We're going to do this a little bit out of order just because of the interest of time, so we have to call an audible here. Jamie, if you don't mind, could you scan, actually, Shannon? Yeah. Okay, good. And then we'll be talking. Okay. So,
okay.
Next slide is the...
now I'm coming to brief you. So I've met with, let's call her Jane. So I've met with Jane, and I've found out what's important to her. So I go and I say, hey, Dr. Boschkin, I just met with Jane, and she told me that, okay, wait, hello? Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So time out.
Yes.
So TC's in the room, you guys are gonna get this, right? You go to talk to your doctor, and they have so many things going on in their head, right? They're thinking about the next patient that they're gonna treat. They're thinking about what they're gonna eat for dinner. They're thinking about this. And I'm like, hold on, eyes on me, right here. Hello, hi.
Oh,
hi,
yes.
right here.
Sorry.
So like get in their face, and not to be rude, but come on, you gotta listen, because if you don't listen.
I'm present, I'm right here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go, shoot.
So Jane, she's getting married in 6 months.
Okay.
She has relapse anterior crowding.
I think it's Shannon.
Well, I'm just coming up with a name.
Okay.
Shannon, this Shannon.
Yes.
And she might have perfect teeth.
She might be already married, but we're going to go with the idea
we're
that
going
she's
with this
getting
idea, right?
married,
So I'm giving
renewing
the
her
perspective.
vows in 6 months.
Yeah, she's renewing her vows. And so it's really important to her to get it done within 6 months.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that you really push that.
Okay.
She had another consultation, and they said it's going to take 12 to 18.
Okay.
So let's see what we can do.
I got you.
Okay, got this?
Class 3 underbite, surgical case.
Oh, God.
And,
Here we go.
And 2 years of treatment is just fine.
Right?
Okay. I got you.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what that looks like. And I try to drive that home because it's really important that when the doctor goes to meet her, you know, he remembers these things. It's what's going to separate you. So now the doctor's going to come do a brief exam.
So we'll just,
And what does that look like when you do the exam?
So what it looks like is, so obviously I'll come in, and the first thing I say is, welcome, Shannon, nice to meet you. Nicole's told me a lot about you. I understand that you have some crowding you want to address. You're getting married in 6 months, or renewed vows in 6 months. And timing is of a concern to you. Does that seem about right? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look in your mouth, and I'm going to say a few things to Nicole, and let's see how fast she can write down. And this is really the way that we interact. And I look in her mouth, and I literally blast every metric as fast as I can. I'll say class 2, 50% overbite, 4 millimeter overjet, lower midlines to the left, fluorosis on 8 and 9, existing crowns on 3, 14, 19, black triangles between 23 and 26. And these are, again, I'm using obviously the universal numbers just because that's going to be what's ported into the top software that goes to the GP. So it's just easier on that nomenclature. So I say all that, and a lot of the time, the consumer, right, the customer, will kind of laugh, or they'll be like, well, hell, that sounds horrible.
What are black triangles?
Like, I'm like a train wreck. And I'm like, well, yeah, you kind of are, yeah, I mean, we don't say that, of course. But what I want them to hear is I want them to hear the problems. Okay? Because if they can hear the problems and they start hearing all these things that I'm listing, and then ultimately, then it's going to be Nicole's job to go through those consequences, the consequences of those problems, and then ultimately then offer a solution. So we really want to be vocal. We want to say it out loud. We don't want to be secretive. We want to be quiet. We want to be as vocal as we can and say everything that you see. Just throw it all out there as much as you can. And so that's certainly worked for us.
Okay.
And so I'm going to keep going on that.
Yeah.
So once I've said all that, then I'll look at the customer and I'll say, okay, so based on what I can see, and I'll look at Nicole and I'm going to say, I'm recommending Invisalign. I think we should start as soon as we can. And so what we need first is we're going to be getting some records. We're going to get some x-rays, some photos, and we're going to actually scan your mouth with this machine over here. And this machine has all of the computer programming to be able to give you a rough draft. And that way, you can see where I want to take you. Now, how does that sound? Great. And at that point, then I leave the room, and then our records technician comes in, and then in order for us to get those records in about 15 minutes, we compartmentalize it. So the first thing that is done is the scan. So the scan is done first. That then gives Nicole some legwork to be able to take the time to make sure it all looks, in its proper place. And then the next one, records, are the photos. And then once the photos are taken, that camera is given to somebody up front if there's not another assistant. And then they can start, cropping the photos and getting them all ready. And then the last thing that's taken are the x-rays.
Okay, so that all sounds nice and pretty.
Yeah.
But we took this picture. Doctors, make sure you don't get in the weeds too much when you're doing the brief exam. So what will happen not all the time, but let's say this will happen, where you look in the mouth of the patient, you say all these things, you say that you're recommending Invisalign, and we're going to take the records first. Before they leave, the patient's like, wait. So I've heard about IPR, slenderization, where you shave my teeth down. Are you going to be doing that? Is that necessary? And what about my bite? I've got this popping. And can we talk about that? And they'll bring up a few different things, and then the doctor can get trapped and start talking about these things before we've actually presented our solution in the pictures and everything. So just a quick reminder, how do you handle that, Dr. Boschkin, when you feel the heat?
It's always a good question. When they start asking the doctor-pointed questions about black triangles, IPR, their bite, TMD issues, all of that, it's very instinctual for us to want to get in there and start answering all those questions. It's just not the right time. You want to get those records first. You want to actually have your treatment coordinators tee all that, from the diagnosis to the treatment plan, the products you're recommending, the length of time, cost, and then in about 80% of the time, I don't even go back into those consultations. I only go in, maybe 20% of the time. It's not worth my time to go back in, and often typically there's not a question that Nicole, my treatment coordinators, can't answer that wouldn't require me to, come back in. So it's really a streamlined approach as much as we can.
Yeah, address them, acknowledge that they're asking questions, but also just, say we're going to get there. So we've taken the records. You saw the scan. Now we're going to walk you through this simulation part.
So if you could go live on the simulation. Oh, cool. It's here. Okay, so this is the scan. Do you want to go and do the outcome?
Yeah.
And then I'll...
Okay, so we're sending this model. So let's start talking about the things that are important when we're going through this scan in terms of the visualization for that patient. So we know that visualization is key, right? We know that that's important. When we go in to scan the patient, we always do Invisalign plus iRecord when we scan our patients, so that down the road we can show the changes that they've had, and we can compare prior scans. So that's one important thing. When I actually do this simulation and it comes up and it starts to work through, you guys can see this. One of the things that we do as it's preparing and taking a while is that we're looking at these line angles on the teeth, right, Dr. Boschkin? Why is that important?
So notice how it says 9, 8, 7. Before it gets down to 0, click that screen first. Always check that those vertical line angles are on every single tooth. How many of you have had a rough draft at times that is like missing a tooth, or it's all skewed, okay? The reason for that is that these vertical lines, which you can change, okay? And, normally you can hit that. There we go.
Screen, there you go.
So you can see what pops up. So you can actually change the access points. You can delete them. You can increase them. That gives you full control, axial control of that tooth to make sure that it's incorporated into the actual outcome. And if you don't do that, and if you have a lot of lower crowding and it looks like one of the teeth is actually missed, you can go and put that vertical marker in there, and then at that point, it'll be incorporated into the outcome simulation. But that's usually why you have a funky scan that comes back, or outcome. It's because there's not a vertical marker on every single tooth. So make sure you have that. So then you just say create simulation. You know how long that takes. Obviously, this is an E2. So it actually is populating at a faster rate, has a faster processor than the old E1s. And then you can see here.
And this is all about the experience, you guys. So they get this digital experience. They're not taking the impressions. They don't know what they don't know. But those of you that have had impressions and you get a scan and get all of this, they're getting a wow factor. Wow, this isn't what I was expecting. So remember, this is part of that experience that we're giving them.
And then in terms of your treatment goals, I don't know, did you allude to the class 2?
No, not yet.
So this is obviously, you have a perfect bite, by the way. Great job. Under treatment goals, you can click on that, and you can see IPR is already clicked. So, you know, these outcome simulations are heavy towards IPR. You can, of course, eliminate that if you wanted to. But over here where it says AP correction, if you click on that, that will now start then correcting your AP corrections, your class 3, class 2s. Without clicking that button, it won't actually populate an outcome that will correct the class 2. So you may want to like do that. I'll just keep that off for I'll just say cancel. And then obviously what we're doing is we're looking at, you know, all the different views. You know, obviously Shannon's got a perfect mouth for the most part, but you know, she has a little rotation on that upper lateral there. But this is sort of the money shot that I like to show. It's that overjet shot. Everything's kind of kicked up there, and we're able to show the upper and lower arches. And then we also have the ability to adjust the outcome. So when we push adjust, and we'll do, let's say, both arches, and we'll see Shen's got, let's say, some black triangles here. You click over here on IPR, and then you can add in, you can add in IPR.
And close those black triangles.
To close those black triangles. You have all the controls over here on the side. So if I wanted to, let's say, bring it down here, pull it up here. There we go. And then blow that up a little bit. There you go. So if I for some reason, if let's say that molar over here was in a little bit of a crossbite, again, I would just click on that, and then down here, I can actually bring that tooth out. So you have all that control. You have some good 3D controls with this outcome simulation. Now, talking about getting into the weeds, you know, we didn't really want to get in too much of the weeds with respect to how we're setting these up or anything, but just a case in point, you do have the ability to doctor this as much as you want, certainly in front of the customer if you want. I don't know that that's advisable, but any changes you make on this, you can save and then send then to your technician in Costa Rica. So that it's all the changes you've done, and it shortens the amount of revisions that you have to do with your technician.
But even better, you can now share it with that prospective patient, okay?
So
there's a button, there's a share button, you put in their email, and it sends it off to them. So they can go home and say, hey, look what my smile is gonna look like before and after. It's an excellent tool. All these store patients that come into our office, they've already seen the before and after, and they keep referencing it. So it is something that people are looking for.
All right.
Okay, so now we get to presenting the solution and the pricing and what that looks like. So in terms of presenting that solution, I want to just point out something that I think has made a difference, and that is that I actually don't even bring out braces as an option. So I just present Invisalign, and I talk to them about it. I want you guys to think about your talk track. One of the things that we found when we made this transition to 95% Invisalign was that in some cases, we were actually talking the patient out of treatment. We were saying, you have to wear them 22 hours a day. If you're not compliant, it's not gonna work. If you don't brush your teeth in between aligner changes, you're gonna get cavities and, you know, this and that. And yeah, some of those things are true, but why are we talking to them about it? Do we say that about braces? Do we say, okay, you can't have caramel, you can't have popcorn, you're gonna have a lot of food restrictions, you're gonna have a lot of pain, first 4 days, really painful, and then you might have some wires that are poking? Like, do you even bring that up? No, we don't. So just remember, have a third party come in and maybe listen to you and see what that looks like. In terms of the financial part, kind of wrapping things up here, the key takeaways that I would say is that we found that 65% of patients don't start that day because of the down payment. They don't have $2,000 to put down. So make the down payment, give them options, okay? If at your office you can't take that down payment away, then use Lending Point or another form of financing. We love Lending Point. It takes the lab fee away from that doctor, and it also gives the patient options to pay over 60 months. Ask your territory manager, your SAM, about that. They'll give you all the information. Flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. And then the final point I would say about presenting the finances in terms of pearls is if you've heard me speak before, you know that when I hand over and I talk them through what the cost is and their payment options. Once I've reviewed all of that and I hand the paper over, I wait. I wait for what might feel like eternity, okay? I don't talk. Like, zip the lips, just wait. I know we kind of get anxious. We're like, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? But they are thinking, do I need to transfer money from my savings to my checking? Do I have FSA dollars left? You know, how can I do this? They're thinking things that you're not thinking. So let them process that, and I guarantee they'll come back with, do I have to make a decision today? Or I'd like to go with the payment option. Okay, so wrapping it up, the intangibles. What makes the difference? Well, I think connecting with the patient right away. Finding something that is important to them, find their key motivator, and make sure that you hone in on that right away. Okay, remember we're making 35 minutes here. This isn't a counseling session, this is like 35-minute connection, okay? Make them feel comfortable. They're not another number walking through your office. That's really key.
Yeah, and then in terms of like the whole upselling thing, I showed you the numbers this morning on the store. 82% were deluxe, and yet it's actually the reverse. It's actually close to 70%, 75% are requesting Signature Deluxe. They're not Signature Plus, excuse me. They're not requesting the Deluxe. We have found our talk track and our ability to be able to not make it feel like we're upselling. We certainly want to give them the options, and we explain, hey, here's what a scenario looks like if we could do the full comprehensive treatment, and here's a scenario where we wouldn't address maybe some black triangles or some additional issues in the posterior. We let the consumer kind of decide from that point, and maybe we're just sort of crafty in how we position it with them in the consultation. But what we've seen is, you know, most people, when we can talk to them through the advantages of going through comprehensive orthodontics, we get what we want.
Yeah.
All 28 teeth get lined.
So visualization is key. One thing you can do on Monday is implement this simulation and scan all of your patients. Give them that wow factor. If you can't do a scan in a minute and a half, then work on it. When you have downtime, practice. Get better. You guys can all do it. Consumers are buying this experience, you guys. They want to have this experience, the same experience that I have with Instacart, the same experience you have when you go into the Apple store, the same experience at the Tesla. Like, they're looking for an experience, and they'll buy that they'll pay more money for an experience than they will somewhere else. So think about that. And then finally, just keep your mindset open. That's what's key to this all. The only way that we change from 40 to 95% is that we're continuing to have our mindset open. And I think that that's what separates you guys from those to the best, right? We have all the best in this room.
So I think that's it. We appreciate your time. Remember, use that outcome simulation and also email it to the customer. That's a huge tool to be able to email it to them. So anyway, thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll stay around for any questions.